Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Truth for Life. It's a pleasure to be here with you again. We are going to be continuing with the second edition or the second episode of The Biggest Problem. And so let's dive in to our topic today. I don't know if you have ever met anybody that was delusional. Maybe, you've been one. I've worked in the emergency department. That was my first career in medicine, was emergency medicine. And in the emergency department, it's quite interesting because at times you have individuals that have certain psychiatric problems that come into the emergency department, and they have issues. One patient was brought in, and he was crawling all over me because he wanted me to save him from the big 6-8 foot spiders and cockroaches and other things that were crawling out of the wall to eat him. There was another patient that he had cut his arm open because he was sure that he had bugs inside of his arm, and he was still seeing them come out of his arm, out of the cut, and I was like, well, no, that's blood, not bugs. And so I got to, put his arm back together again. And, there's those people that come in and they believe that they've got a microchip implanted in their brain, and the military or the government is communicating with them and telling them what to do. And there's others that come in and they are fighting and kicking and screaming, and they believe that you're there to kill them, and you have to have one police officer on one leg and another on the other leg, and emergency medical services on their arms, and somebody holding their head so they don't bite somebody, and you get to wrestle them down into a bed and then strap them down. And sometimes the only thing that you can do for them, I've tried talking people out of their delusions and in their delusional state, and I can't. They're as convinced that their delusional state is as real, what they perceive in their delusion is as real as what I perceive. And so they don't believe me when I tell them that what they believe isn't real. And sometimes, especially when they're going to be a harm to themselves or others, it takes a little happy juice in order to get them to calm down and to recognize and to, not be so dangerous and so on, right? But the question is, are you and I delusional? And if we were, how would we know? Because the very nature of a delusional nature is that the individual who is delusional doesn't know that they're delusional. And what if you were born delusional? What if you grew up delusional? What if everybody around you was delusional and everybody had essentially the same delusion? How would you know? If you went and you talked with others who were, and they had essentially the same story as you do, how would you know if you were delusional? What if you were born with a delusion that had you upside down? And from the time that you were little, you were upside down. Wouldn't upside down look right side up? And how would you know? Jeremiah 17 and verse 9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Who can know it? So God has been trying to tell us for a long time that the heart is deceitful, that we are deceived. You take a ball and you stick it on a hill like this and you let it roll. Which way is it going to roll? Well, clearly it's going to roll down. It's going to go down every time. So what is down to the deceived heart? Down is wickedness. But what does the deceived heart think is down? It thinks it's righteousness, when it's actually wickedness. And it will always go. You put that ball on that hill, it will always roll downhill every time it will go there. That's the nature of the deception or of the delusion. Righteousness is uphill, wickedness is downhill, but we think it's the opposite. And so we pursue what we think is righteous when it's not. It's a problem. It says again, Jeremiah 17, verse 9, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Desperate. What does it mean to be desperate? Well, imagine that you're in a desert, and in that desert you've been there for, let's say 3 days without any water, and you are dehydrated, and your tongue is cracked and bleeding and stuck to the roof of your mouth. Your lips are cracked, and you feel so horrible, and your temperature is going up. You don't have enough water to regulate your temperature anymore, and you're sunburned, and you're hot, and you're achy, and you're baking, and you know you're going to die soon. And off in the distance you see a table. It's not like a usual mirage. You actually see a table, and on that table is this pitcher with looks like it's got sparkling, glistening on the outside, cool water in it. But between you and that is a huge cactus patch, and that cactus patch is it is 100 meters, 300 feet thick, and it is kilometers or miles wide, and it's thick. You can't get through that without getting tons and tons of spines in you. Are you going to face the desert or the cactus in order to get to the water? Well, most people are going to. Yes, they're going to. And the question is why? It's because they are desperate. They're desperate for the water. And what's the water to the sinful heart? The water is wickedness, but we think it's righteousness. It's loss, but we think it's gain. It's evil, but we think it's good. It's exactly the opposite of what we think it is, but we pursue it. I don't know if you've ever climbed a mountain before. My father used to be a mountain climber. I grew up in Florida, and Florida is flat. There are no mountains in Florida, so I didn't grow up climbing mountains. But my father grew up on the west coast of the United States, and he did grow up, climbing mountains. And so what happens if you're climbing the mountain and you get to the very top, and when you get to the very top, there's this exhilaration. You've spent all this time and planning and effort and, exercise and everything, and you have made it. There's an elation when you get to the top. But what happens when you get to the top of the mountain, but your whole world is upside down? You just got to the bottom thinking you were climbing to the top. You just got to the bottom thinking you were climbing to the top. Welcome to the delusion. This delusion is so thick, it's so just amazingly comprehensive, that if God were to look you in the eye and tell you what's wrong with your heart, you still wouldn't believe him. You wouldn't believe him. I mean, he told his disciples, a couple of weeks before his death, he said, "Who do men say that I am?" And, Peter spoke up and he says, "Well, you're the Messiah." Men say that I am. Well, some say that you're Moses and Jeremiah and one of those prophets. And he says, "Well, who do you say that I am?" "Well, you're the Messiah, the Christ." And they all agreed. 2 weeks later, Jesus is with them at the Last Supper, and he says, "All of you are going to not destroy me. All of you are going to desert me this night." How many believed him? None. And Peter said, "Well, hey, even if all of they do, I won't." And Jesus said, "No, Peter, you tonight, before the cock crows twice, you're going to deny me 3 times. Peter's, no, he doesn't know me. He's being mean to me, and so on. Jesus quotes scripture to the disciples, and he says, the scripture says, "Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. All of you will desert me this night." How many believed him? None of them. They didn't believe him. Even after being with him for 3.5 years, they still believed that they understood themselves better than he understood them. They thought they understood their hearts better than he understood their hearts. He has been trying to tell us for a long time we're crazy. He said in Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, he says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. He doesn't stop there. He says, "But we are all like an unclean thing, and all our righteousnesses are like filthy rags, and we all fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind have taken us away." That's not all. He says, "Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard its spots? Then may you also do good, who are accustomed to do evil." And then it says, And Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 13, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels. Now, in these first 3 verses, he's talking about what selfishness can do. Selfishness can speak with the tongues of men and of angels. Selfishness can have the gift of prophecy, can understand all mysteries and all knowledge, can have all faith so that I could remove mountains. Selfishness can bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and it can even give your body to be burned in a martyr's death. Selfishness can do all of that. And in Matthew 7:22 and 23, Jesus says, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? Cast out demons in your name? Done many wonders in your name? I mean, here are the superstars of spirituality. Here are the superstars of Christianity. Here are the miracle workers. Here are the exorcists. Here are the prophets. Here are the, I mean, we would look at them and we'd be like, oh, you got it. I want to follow you. I want to know what you got. And Jesus says, what does he say? He says, then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. How can he say that? Why does he say that? It's because there's one thing that God recognizes, and that is love. Self-sacrificing love. That's what God recognizes. That's what he recognizes as his own. And if anything you do is with a motive of selfishness and not the motive of self-sacrificing love, it's not his, no matter how good it looks. Scripture goes on and tells us that the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. Our sinful nature, it is not possible for us to be subjected to the law of God. It's not possible. That's saying it's impossible for our fallen nature to obey the law of God. It's impossible. Jesus put it this way. He said, can a bad tree bear good fruit and a good tree bear bad fruit? No, of course not. Is our sinful nature a good tree or a bad tree? It's a bad tree. So can it produce good fruit? No, it's impossible. It's impossible. Revelation 3:17 says, you say, I am rich and have become wealthy and need nothing, and do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. Jeremiah 17, verses 5 and 6. Thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart departs from the Lord. Now remember, it's by trust that you bind yourself to your source. So when it says, cursed is the man who trusts in man, that means you have somebody who has another person as their source and makes flesh his strength. Now you rely upon or depend upon that person whose heart departs from the Lord. That means that you cannot have God as your source and a person as your source at the same time. And what's going to happen to that person? For he shall be like a shrub in the desert and shall not see when good comes, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness in a salt land which is not inhabited. That is going to be the effect or the result of your life when you have other people as your source and not God, and you're separated from him. It's not going to go well. It won't go well. And he's been warning us forever. Now, you don't have to... What do you have to do in order to break the law? You simply have to switch the tables and take from the second table and give to the first table. Right? You just have to turn it around backwards. We were created to take from God and give to others, but now in the sinful fallen human nature, we just get dizzy, turn everything around, and now we take from people and we give to God. We're dependent upon people, and we're selfish. And that is evil. So let's look at this delusion of our nature, this delusion of our identity, and this identity that I am God. How does it manifest itself in our lives? How can we look and see where it is active and whether we are living by it or not? Well, first of all, if I am God, then I am my own. And if I am my own, then I am accountable to no one, only myself. And if I am my own, then what is done to me. It's personal. And if I am a God, then my love comes from me. Have you ever loved somebody with your love? How much love, mothers, have you put into your children? And wives, how much love have you put into your husbands? I tell you, you think you have loved them with your love. But that's only a delusion. Because love doesn't come from you. You are not the creator. You are not the source of it. If you have ever loved anybody with any love, you didn't love them with your love, you loved them with God's love, because He's the source of love. But when I think that I'm a God, then I think I can give from myself, but I still have needs, so I give in order to receive. When you tell somebody, I love you, is that a statement of fact, or is that a request? Well, you might say, well, I say it because I mean it. Okay, well, if you tell them I love you, and they say, okay, and you say, I love you, and they say, whatever, and you say, I love you, and they say, that's your problem, and you say, I love you, and they say, well, get your head checked, I don't love you. And every time you say, I love you, you get some response of that nature. How long are you going to say, I love you? I tell you, not long. Why? Because I love you is not for them. That's for me. I love you is so that you can love me. I love you is not a statement that I love you. I love you is a request that you might love me. And as long as I get the I love you too, I'm okay. And I don't know that my motive is selfish. So when I give to receive, I invest. I put something of value in somebody else to get something of greater value back. And so I might give flowers, but I'm looking for acceptance. I might give time, but I'm looking for belonging. I might give attention, but I'm looking for attention in return, right? So I need all of these things, and so I'm going to give something in order to get it. I'm going to give something in order to get it, and I'm going to give something in order to get it. We're constantly giving in order to receive. Imagine the person in your life that you love the most or you loved the most. Imagine if they're not alive, imagine that they are. And there's a special occasion that's coming up and you want to get them the perfect present. And you go shopping all over and looking online and in stores and everything, and you finally find it, but it's expensive, and so you have to save for a number of weeks or months in order to buy it. And you buy it and you wrap it up wonderfully, and the day comes and you go up to the door and you knock on the door. All right. And you knock on the door. And they come out, and with a smile, you hand them the present. And they take the present, and they throw it on the ground. They stomp on it. They slam the door. How do you feel? Yeah? Bad? Rejected? Hurt? Angry? Yeah, all of these are ways that we feel when something like that happens. But the question is, why? Why do we feel that way? Well, we feel that way because we had an expectation associated with the gift. We expected that they would accept it. We expected that they would maybe give us a hug or a thank you or a kiss. Or I mean, it just depends on the relationship. Some people you don't want them giving you a kiss, but other people, yeah, you do. and so, but there was some expectation with the gift, and you didn't get what you expected, and so now you're hurt. All right. If I'm a God, then I am dependent upon others. I'm dependent upon others. I need them to be good. But since I am dependent upon them, I have to modify how I think, how I behave, how I respond when I'm around them and in association with them in a way that I think they would have me to think and respond and behave in order for me to continue to receive from them what I need. So if I need acceptance from them, I'm going to modify how I behave around them so that they will still accept me. If I need security from them, I'm going to modify how I behave around them so that I can still be secure, and so on. And I will try to manipulate others, and I am manipulated by others because I think that they're my source of what I need. You can only be manipulated and controlled by someone or something that you believe is the source of something you need. If someone or something is not the source of anything you need, you cannot be controlled or manipulated by them. Here. You can be controlled and manipulated physically, but I'm talking in the mind, right? Now, the manipulation and the control may come from the good side, but the manipulation and the control might come from the bad side as well. Right? Now, this individual is going to be using fear, threats, force, abuse, and so on this individual, and the question is why? And the reason is because he has her as his source. And he needs something from her. And so in order to keep her, he must threaten her and try to use fear and whatever he can in order to try to keep her around because he fears losing her and what she offers to him. She also is in the same situation where she believes he controls something she needs, even if that is life or comfort or security or something of that nature. And if she believes that he can take that away from her and that he controls it, well, she will remain for that sake. So he has her as his source, she has him as her source, and so that then he uses the abuse and the everything to try to keep her, and she stays because she has him as her source. If he was free, he would never use the force, and if she was free, she wouldn't stay. Unless God said stay. Now, as a speaker, I don't need to know people in order to make myself their slave. I can make myself a slave to the audience that I'm speaking to because I might need them to accept me. I might need them to agree with me. I might need them to whatever. So it's not necessarily that we do this just with those that we know. No, we do this with even strangers as well. And we've had some experiences over the last few years where people have felt under pressure for certain reasons. Now, this is just one example of a reason, and I'm using it because it's a kind of a worldwide example that people recognize. But it could be any number of topics and not necessarily this particular issue. But there were many individuals that felt under pressure when their corporation, because in the United States at least, it was the corporations that were enforcing certain mandates. In other countries, it might have been the government, but in our case, it was corporations. And so if you worked for a corporation and the corporation said, you must take this treatment, you must do this thing, you must put this chemical in your body in order for you to continue to work here and function here and so on, well, some individuals didn't want to do that. And so now they felt under pressure. But the question is, why did they feel under pressure? Was there any reason really for them to be under pressure? And the answer is no. The only reason that they were under pressure is because they believed a lie about something. And the lie that they were believing, not on purpose, but really, it was there. The lie that they were believing was, the corporation controls my livelihood. And because the corporation controls my livelihood, now if they want me to do something that I don't want to do, now I feel under pressure because they can threaten to take away my livelihood. But if you believe that God is the source of your livelihood and that He can take you out of anywhere that you can earn money and any type of anything else, and He can even take you out in a desert where you can't find food and you can't find water and you can't use money and there's no way that you can have a livelihood, and God can supply your need. He can supply your need. If you believe that God is the source of your livelihood, then if a corporation says, well, we want you to do this in order for you to continue to have your livelihood, and you don't want to do it, and you don't believe that God would have you to do it, then you're like, well, okay, thanks. I'm gone. And there's no pressure. You don't have to fight. You're not under pressure. You cannot be threatened by anyone or anything that does not control what you need. But the moment you believe that they control what you need, that moment you put yourself under their ability to control and manipulate you somehow. Now, if you wanted to do what the corporation wanted you to do, there was no pressure. Right? If you were like, oh yes, line me up, I want it, there was no pressure. But if you didn't want it, but you understood the truth, you wouldn't be under pressure either. You'd just say, all right, bye guys. And if there's another time when you want me to, come back and work again, that's fine. And in the meantime, God will take care of me, and he's the one that has my needs in control. And even when it comes to governments, a government, if you believe that your government is the source of your identity, if they are the source of your freedom, if they're the source of anything, then you will feel or potentially be placed in circumstances and situations where you feel under pressure by the government to do certain things in certain ways. And if you believe that those are against what God would have you to do, now you find yourself in a difficulty. But if you recognize that a government doesn't control anything that you need, God is the controller of your identity, God is the controller of your freedoms, God is controller of, these various different things, well, then a government can threaten, but you don't feel threatened because you know that they can't take away from you what only God controls. And so now you can't be threatened by anything, anywhere, because you have God and God alone as your source. Have you ever heard that in these last days, when all sorts of hell is going to break loose, that eventually every earthly tie will be severed? That's a promise. It's a promise. It's a promise that we will come to the place where we have God and God alone as our source, and no one and nothing else. And when you have God and God alone as your source and no one and nothing else, you are free. You're free. You might be in prison, but you're free. You might be in a cave, but you're free. You might be, have a mob chasing after you, but you're free. Now, but if we're back in the I am God, right? If we're back in the I am God, and if you have somebody in your life that you see as the source of something that you need, you can't let them go. Right? You must try to hold on to them because you see them as the source of something that you need, and you can't lose your needs. Right? And so you try to hold on to them. And we have all sorts of phrases. Oh, you complete me. Oh, you're my, this and the other. Oh, I could never lose you, and whatever. Well, those are all statements from an individual who believes that they're God, who believes that the other person belongs to them and is the source of what they need. And sure, you cannot lose your source. It's true. But we make other people our source, and we think love, the more I love somebody, the more I cannot lose them. But that's wrong. That's only true for our source. And since our source should be God, as the law tells us, then the only one that we cannot lose is God. Indeed, if we truly love a person with God's love, and we're taking our love from God and we're giving to them, if we truly love a person, they're free to go if they choose. I don't have to hold on to them. Now, if they're going in the wrong direction or whatever, then sure, I'm going to have a conversation with them and, talk with them about things and so on. But I'm not going to try to force them to stay. I'm not going to try to, they have the freedom to go. And I still have my source in God, even if they walk away. It's a false idea that I can't lose you. That's a false idea. It's a false love. Now, what kind of love do you need? Do you need a love that's full, that's eternal, that's unselfish, that's personal? Yeah, sure, that's the love that you need. What if you believe that you can find that kind of love here? How's that going to work out? Can another person who has the same needs as you do provide what you need? No. They can't provide that. They can't be that for you. Imagine you have a neighbor, and the neighbor's, it's one of those neighbors that just comes over all the time and knocking on the door and asking for something, comes back later, knocking on the door, asking for something else, and later coming back, knocking on the door and asking for something else. It's just that kind of neighbor. And one day it's the desperate knock. And you know you got to answer the door. And so you do. You go and you answer the door, and there they are, and he is just absolutely desperate. He has found out their child has been having problems for a while, and they just recently found out what the problem was, and it's a terminal condition. There's no treatment for it where you're at. But in another country, in a certain place, he has been looking, and he found a center that treats that particular condition, and they have a 50% success rate. But since it's not in your country, it's in the other country, they require payment up front, and it's only $5 million. So what does your neighbor want? $5 million. So are you going to give your neighbor $5 million? No? Why not? Oh, you're so mean and cruel. I mean, their child's going to die. You're not going to give them a chance for life? Oh, you don't have $5 million? Is that a problem? Oh, okay. Well, maybe you give them $1,000 to go towards their goal. And, you know, if you had that, and then they come back later. And they want the rest of the $4,999,000. And they come back later, and they come back later, and multiple times a day, day after day, they come looking for the rest of the $5 million. How do you feel? Well, you're frustrated. Why? Because you don't have what they need, and they think you've got it, and they keep coming to you for it. And how do they feel? Well, they're frustrated because they're not getting what they need, and they think you've got it. Welcome to relationships. Right? Welcome to relationships. One person believes that the other person can be the source of what they need, and they go to them like, oh, you're going to fulfill my needs, and you're so wonderful, and all this kind of stuff. And the other one thinks that they should be able to fulfill their needs, and they're like, oh, this is nice at the beginning, but then it becomes harder over time. And then you find out that one person is not so, one person's frustrated because they're not getting what they need, and the other one's frustrated because they think that they should be able to supply their need, and they're not happy. Nobody's happy. Why? Because both believe that they're God, and both are going to each other as their source, and neither of them can be the source for the other one. It's a mess. Absolutely a mess. Yes, it's a mess. Well, if I am a God, then I expect good from others, and I need them to be good in order for me to be good. But how many people are good? So the result is frustration and the attempt to manipulate and control. I need what's good. And when I take what's good, I have what's good, and then I can give what's good. But if I take what's bad, then I have what's bad, and I give what's bad. I can't help it. And I was meant to have God as my source who is good, and then I'd have good, and then I could give good. But when I have people as my source who are not good, then I get what's not good, and I give what's not good without a choice. So if your children are not good, you must fix them, but you fix them with the same nature that makes them not good. And you try to manage their behavior and demand that they manage their behavior when behavior is only the natural expression of the source that they're taking from. Your children don't misbehave because they have freedom not to. They misbehave because they're in captivity to sinful nature. And then we try to beat the sinful nature out of them, and beating will never beat sinful nature out of them. It won't do it. It's not right. And we do the same thing with our spouses, except in kind of different ways sometimes. And we do the same thing in church and other areas where we believe we have the authority to control others' behavior. And therefore we make ourselves the moral police wherever we go. Right? And we're always policing others' behaviors. We're measuring their skirts. We're measuring their jewelry. We're measuring their this, that, and the other thing. Right? And if it's an issue that we have highly on our minds and on our hearts, but we don't have any authority to control it, then we sit around and we steam and we mutter and we sputter and we complain and yeah. Welcome to being a creature but believing that you're God. And if I'm a God, then I believe that it's about me. And if it's about me, then it's personal. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, and you get angry at them because that was personal. It was about you. Your company loses that huge client, and the boss blames you. And now you respond with dejection and despair, and so on. Why? Because you think it's about you. And you played that piece, that difficult classical piece at the concert hall, and you nailed it. And you have a standing ovation, and now you feel such elation. Why? Because you believe it's about you. And you go on that date, and they don't show up. And you respond with disappointment and self-pity. Why? Because you believe that what others say and do is about you. And so you take what they say and do personally, and you respond according to how you took what they said and did. What others say to you can be hurtful. It can be, and you take it personally. But why do you take it personally? Because it's directed at you with your name attached to it? Right. What we don't recognize is that what others say and what others do, they say because of what's in them. And they do what's in them. It's only what's inside of them that's coming out. So what somebody else says and what they do and how they say it and how they do it is about them. It's not about me. But I take it as if it's about me because they say it in my direction. Now, why do I take it? Because I think it's about me, yes. But I also take it because I see them as my source. And if they're my source, I must take from them what they give. If I'm a God, then it's mine. I'm the owner. I'm the owner. Woohoo! And if I'm the owner, then if it's injured, damaged, destroyed, dies, walks away, rejects, then it's my loss. It's my loss. So the house burns down, and it was my house. And so that contains my stuff in it. And that was my loss. And now it becomes my problem. And now I have to try to figure out how to fix it. Your spouse leaves you. Well, that was your spouse. And that was your marriage and your relationship. And now you are missing your person and your relationship and your source. It's gone. And now you are at loss. You have an injury and the spinal cord is severed. And now you are paralyzed. Now no longer can you control your feet. No longer can you control your legs. No longer can you control your arms. No longer can you control anything except for your head. You're paralyzed. Your body is in this mess. It's your loss. And your mother dies, and she's no longer there to give you advice and to talk to and so on. And maybe time to time you go to the grave just to spend there and, well, you say to remember. But you go there hoping that somehow you can still get something. And when I'm God, well, it's my problem because I'm God. And therefore, I must fix it. And in order to fix it, I must control something. What is the something that I must control? Well, I have a problem inside of me, and that problem makes me, I don't see the problem that's inside of me. The problem that's inside of me, I think, is outside of me. And so I see problems outside of me, and there are possessions, and there's people, and there's environment, and resources, and circumstances, and time, and space. And all of those are like fires that are threatening to burn me. And I don't want the fires to get very close. I don't want to get burned. I like comfort. And so I try to control all of these things and keep them away from me and arrange them and order them and so on. And if I'm successful, then I'm comfortable. So my measure of success is comfort. But how much of space can I control, or time, or circumstances, or resources, or environment, people, and possessions? No, it doesn't happen. You might think that you can control possessions until the thief comes and steals them, or until the fire comes and burns them up. You might believe that you can control resources until the depression hits, or the economic, the bubble, the real estate bubble bursts and so on, then housing prices go down, and what you find that you can't control any of it. And when you try to control what you cannot control, the result of that is stress. And it's stress. And if I'm God, then I'm the judge. Oh, and I'm a really good judge. I condemn everything I judge. And I judge myself. And so I condemn myself. Oh, you're so stupid. I can't believe I did that. I'm just such a... And you hold yourself under self-condemnation. Or you judge others about what they have said and done. And now, you hold them guilty for that. And when you judge others and hold them guilty, now you enter into the bitterness trap. What's the bitterness trap? Well, in the bitterness trap, I believe that I am God. And what you did to me, and you violated my law, and you owe me, and that sin requires a penalty, and I must uphold justice for my sake, for self's sake. And I'm going to try to get the penalty from you, and the only way you are going to go free is if you pay the penalty in full. But since you cannot pay for the penalty in any way, even in full, then you're never going to go free. And this is the cause of bitterness, the foundation of it. Now, the deception is that, okay, you wronged me, I'm going to put you in prison, and if you're going to stay in prison until you pay for everything that you did, and you can't pay, so therefore you're not getting out of prison. That's the deception. But what happens if I'm in a delusional state and I'm seeing things backwards? And I think I'm looking from the outside of the cell in. What might I be doing? I might be looking from the inside of the cell out. So the reality is that what you did, you wronged God, and I'm the one that's in prison, and I'm going to stay in prison until you pay for everything that you did, and you can't pay, so I'm never getting out. I become my own prison warden. Welcome to bitterness. In order for me to go free, I must be willing to let you go free. But I'm not going to let you go free, because if I let you go free and you don't pay the penalty, justice is not going to be met. And so for the sake of justice, I must not let you go free. And how am I going to make you pay for what you did? Well, I'm going to hold on to my hurt feelings, and I'm going to try to hold you close to my hurt feelings so that by my hurt feelings, I can make you hurt for what you did. And if you suffer enough, then maybe you can go free. But no measure of suffering can undo the past. No measure of suffering can change history. And it doesn't matter how much I suffer inside of my fire, I'm the one that gets burned. You could be roasting marshmallows. And so I remain captive, and I will not let go of the hurt feelings because of my sense of justice. Because if I let go, I have nothing to hold you to. So for the sake of holding you captive to what you have done, I hold on to my hurt. Welcome to bitterness. Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it's crazy. Now, just as bitterness is delusional, there is a delusional forgiveness, a forgiveness deception. And this is the usual Christian understanding of forgiveness. And it's this: you sinned against me, you owe me for what you did, and I'm going to choose to not make you pay. I set you free. I forgive you. You might say, well, what's wrong with that? I mean, isn't that forgiveness? No, it's not. Why? Because I am still God. You still did it to me. You still owe me. I'm just from my higher position going to condescend and let you go. It's still in the error. It's still having me as God. It's still part of the delusion. Satan has a delusion for everything that's real. It's really crazy. So here's my problem. Here's our problem. We have a sinful nature, and that sinful nature, I see myself as God. I think that I am my own. I give from myself in order to receive. That's my love. I'm dependent upon others. I expect good from them. I think it's about me. I think I'm the owner. I take things I see things as my problem. I'm the judge, and I'm a slave to others. I'm frustrated. I try to manipulate them. I take things personally. I'm at loss. I try to fix and control things, but I can't, so I'm at stress. And now I'm a condemning judge. Like it? No? All right. So we have a nature that's delusional. And that nature causes us to drive our life in a way that harms others and destroys ourselves, while we think we're driving okay. It's like a person under the influence of alcohol driving. The more drunk they are, the better they think they drive, while they're driving worse. Now, are we responsible for our nature? Can we help how we were born? Does God condemn us because of the nature that we're born with? The answer is no, no, and no. But that nature is dangerous, and it is self-destructive, and it does harm others, and it does need to be fixed. It does. You say, I am rich and have become wealthy and have need of nothing, and do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. And here we are. The truth is, or the lie is, that I'm happy and I'm healthy, but the truth is I'm wretched and miserable. The lie is that I'm rich, and the truth is that I'm poor. The lie is that I can see, and the truth is that I'm blind. And then the lie is that I am clothed, and the truth is that I'm naked. I'm exactly the opposite of what I think I am. If you have somebody that is mentally ill, that is delusional, and they're living in an alternate self-destructive reality, and in order for them to be well, they must take the medicine, and that will make them well, but to them the medicine looks like poison. And there's a poison, but they think the poison is medicine, and so they go after the poison and they take it thinking that it's medicine, and they avoid the medicine thinking that it's poison. But they are created to self-govern, and you cannot govern for them, and you cannot force them into the correct choice. How do you fix the problem? The delusion is of our sinful nature. God has a plan to set us free, but I see God's plan as poison. And I have a plan which is poison, but I think my plan is medicine. And so I'm always going after my plan, and I'm avoiding God's plan, and I'm killing myself. But I was created to govern myself from the inside according to identity, and I have the false identity, and God himself doesn't even get the truth and force it into me. He won't ever do that because he created me to self-govern. So if I self-govern and the problem is inside where I self-govern, how do you fix it? It's a serious problem. And the answer includes holograms. What do I mean? Well, imagine with me that you live in a world that is half real and half hologram. And the hologram, it's not, I don't know why they always use this kind of fakey blue, fakey green, whatever. But anyways, the holograms are so real, you can't tell the difference between the real and the fake. And so you live in this world, and it's half hologram and it's half real, and you can't tell what's real and you can't tell what's fake. If everything you encountered went exactly as it appeared, every time you went to a door, it worked like a door. Every time you went to a wall, it functioned like a wall. Every time you walked on the floor, it functioned like the floor. If everything went like it appeared, would you ever question what you see? No, of course not. So one day, you're in this world, and you go into a building, and you got to go to the bathroom, and there's a hallway sign that says bathroom, and there's this hallway, and the hallway goes down for a ways, and then there's some bathrooms down there, and so you start hoofing along, and all of a sudden, and you pick yourself up off the ground, and your nose is broken, and it's bleeding, and you got this big knot that's growing on your forehead, and you're like, what's that? Who hit me? And you get up and you look and all you can see is hallway and you're the only one that's there. And you reach out and you feel concrete wall. But all you can see is hallway going down in front of you with bathrooms down there. Would that make you question what you see? Yeah. If you have a few of these instances, you really begin to question what you see, and you're going to start walking around like this with a hand in front of you so you don't bang your face into some wall somewhere. You made a dumb decision, a bad decision, and that was to walk with your face full speed into a concrete wall. That was a bad decision. And you got the consequences of the bad decision, but you thought you were making a good decision walking down the hallway to go to the bathroom. So while you thought you were making a good decision, you were actually making a bad one, and you got the consequences of the bad decision. That can make you question what you perceive. Now, you're in another building somewhere, and you come in the doors, and the help desk is over here, and you go walking through, and all of a sudden, you disappear. And you end up, 8-10 feet below, the next 4 below, and you have a sprained ankle, and it's painful, and what just happened? And you look up, and there's a hole, but you didn't feel like you fell through anything. You just dropped. And somehow you get your way back up there to that foyer, and you come up, and all you see is floor. And so you go along and you get to the point where you fell and you bend over and you start feeling on the ground. And there's no ground. You can see it, but you can't feel it. You just walked off of a big hole, but you thought you were walking across the floor. You were making what you thought was a good decision, but you were actually making a bad decision, and you got the consequences of the bad decision. If that happened enough, would you seriously begin to question what you perceive? Yes. Yes. And that's the only way God can rescue us from our delusion. Because he can't force the truth upon us. And he will not suspend cause and effect. Because by cause and effect, it's one of the only ways that he can rescue us from the fall, to help us to realize that what we're perceiving is not correct and we need something else. We're told, I, the Lord, search the heart, I test the mind, even to give to man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. And we're also told, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties. See if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. It's in the test and the trial that what's inside of us, what's in our bottle gets knocked over, and what's inside of us comes spilling out. It's in the test and trial. Right? It can't come out of you unless it was in you. And so God never suspends cause and effect. He never suspends it. He needs that cause and effect in order to rescue us, in order to help us to recognize that our perceptions are not right and to reach out for new information, for something else, another explanation. But when we recognize also that all that can come out of me is something that was already in me, then when I come spilling out, when I have depression, when I have despondency, when I have anger, when I have resentment, when I have these different responses, then it shows me what is already in my heart, so that what I cannot see when it's inside, I see when it comes spilling out, so that I can know. I can know. Now, David prayed that prayer, search me, O God, and know my heart, try me and know my anxieties. And God could have come to him and said, okay, well, since you asked, David, you're a murderer, and you're an adulterer, and you're a slanderer of my name, and you're going to drag my name through the mud for the next few millennia. And David would have come back and said, no, Lord, am I not a man after your own heart? Do I not delight in your laws and all my meditation day and night? Do I not hate your enemies? And so on and so forth. But God doesn't argue. And so God just allowed David to have time. And when David took that time, and one day he was on the portico of his palace, and he was looking out, and he saw Bathsheba taking a bath without her sheba on. And he said, whoa. He should have been like, whoa, but he was like, whoa, oh. He asked somebody, what's her name? And he invited her over. And one thing led to another. And a year later, and a murdered husband later, and adultery later, and a baby later. And David's still in his deception. And the prophet Nathan is sent to him with the story of a rich man that has all these sheep and a poor man that has only one sheep. And the rich man took the poor man's sheep and fed it to a stranger that came. And you're the judge of Israel. What should we do? And David's like, oh, how dare there be such a selfish person in my kingdom? That man must pay back 4 times what he took, and he must die. And Nathan said, you are the man. And in that moment, the floodlights of God's love shined into the hell of David's heart. And what he would not believe if God told him, he now could not deny because he did it. You see, one of the only ways that God can reach us to show us what is in our hearts is by demonstration, not by proclamation. So he can't just tell us what's wrong. He's been trying for thousands of years to tell us what's wrong. It doesn't work. He must show us what's wrong. And then we begin to get it. And when David finally began to understand what was in his heart, then and only then could he cry out with the earnest sincerity that he did, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me, but restore to me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me by your generous spirit. And God responded to David in Ezekiel 36:26 and 27, when he said, I will give you a new heart. I will put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. The spilling out is not for your destruction. The spilling out is to reveal what is in your heart so that he can save you, so that you can turn to him with true earnestness and cry out, God, I need a new heart. Will you ask him for that heart now? Please do.